Okay, everybody, we are now live. Craig has a level 10 energy. I can see it.
Yeah, I'm feeling, I'm jumping out of my skin, Pete, is really what it is.
Jay is with us. He's the VP for Sunbit, and we brought him on because we're going to talk about all the narratives he gets to hear about sitting in the position he does at Sunbit. And Sunbit has come on the scene in dentistry. Maybe it's been there a long time, but I feel like I went to a conference and I never saw y'all, and then all of a sudden I went there and it was like just Sunbit, everything, giant, tables and involvement, and like, look how easy. And I was even compelled. And so Jay, welcome to the Bulletproof Pod. I want to thank you guys for being big sponsors of our last summit. You guys had a busy table, people who haven't been exposed to you guys or are using the other competitors in our market. I always say, Jay, reduce the friction when people are trying to give you money. And you guys have created what seems to be the least frictionable way to get patients to enroll when it comes to finances. So I will say that it's just not another repeat product in our industry that's trying to say, hey, we're different. It actually was different when I went through it. And I was like, holy cow, 30 seconds. Now you're speaking my language for an approval, right? With a driver's license scan, reduce the friction in the chair. But that's not what we're going to talk about today. Even though that is a great, unique sales USP.
This is going great because Larry and I can be the best guest listener. Let's
Larry,
let him roll with
Jay.
it. Jay, sorry. I'm sorry. It's Letwat, the last name. That's what it was. You can say that one.
So, Jay, you haven't been able to speak yet because I haven't let you, and now Craig is making fun of my monologue. So,
no, I thought it was good. I actually liked it.
Tell me real quickly where you sit because I referenced that, where you sit in Sunbit to have the optics that you do.
Sure. So I've been with Sunbit since the beginning. So about 6.5 years or so, when we only had like 30 merchants. Now we have about 21,000. So kind of meteoric growth. About 3.5 years ago, I started the dental practice, literally knocking on a door of a group in California, trying to understand if there's a market. Did a lot of validation, helped build the product, rolled it out. And obviously with the help of many, many others, we've grown to over 11,000 locations in dental. So I manage the dental division sales team to really grow and build and try to make as many practices and individual practitioners super happy.
Give me your breakdown of group practices percentage of your market penetration, group practices versus like solo practitioners. What would you say the division of
sure
11,000?
So in terms of DSO groups, and we kind of consider that 2+ locations. Everyone, of course, has a little bit different definition, but we're at about 800 DSOs to date. So when you look at the split, it's probably 70% groups, 30% individual practitioners, I would say.
Hey, Jay, I just want to let you, the insult not to fall on deaf ears. Peter just took a little cheap shot at me because he said, I call, larger practices more than one location just because optically I have one location is larger. So I just wanted you to know, Jay, we weren't giggling at what you said. It was just
that's fine.
Peter and my little.
If you've ever seen the movie Step Brothers, that's kind of how we act.
Yeah, Jay, have you seen our podcast before?
I've seen a couple.
Okay.
I did see a couple on YouTube. So yeah, I knew what I was in for.
Okay. Good.
And we apologize in advance, by the way.
Well,
just a quick question. Prior to 6.5 years ago, before Sunbit, where were you? What's life before Sunbit look like for Jay?
So I had a software company, a parental control software company, which I sold, which dealt with trying to prevent bad information, pictures, images, text from getting to kids. So, against, pornography, guns, material, things like that. Kind of
internet God's work there, bud. That's awesome.
Well, you try to do as best as you can. It was a great experience. I had it for about 4 years before I sold it.
Good for you.
So no dental prior to Sunbit, huh?
Yeah. Other than going to the dentist, nothing. I mean, what I kind of specialized in throughout my career was kind of taking unstructured situations, companies, divisions, and building processes and putting them in hyper growth mode. So Sunbit, that's what really appealed to me when I started at Sunbit, which, by the way, was before we even thought about getting into dental. We were mainly in auto dealerships when I started.
Really?
Just a few. Yeah.
So what have you learned now that you've had 6.5 years of working with dentists, dental offices, DSOs, private equity? What's been a couple of the takeaways that you've learned?
I mean, I could probably write a book, and I probably should.
Well, you should.
Probably should. Everyone is writing a book. I should too. But I would say it's such a unique. First of all, no one ever thinks of dentistry as an industry, right? I never thought of that. I mean, I always went to a kind of a sole practitioner dentist, did my thing every 6 months, and that's it. I never thought that there's an actual industry or there's groups of 10, 20, 50, 100 that are out there. So that's, I think, the first thing. Like, it really opened my eyes that to dentistry being a huge industry. I think that's the first thing. I think the second thing, what I noticed is there could be a lot better technology adoption in dentistry than there currently is. This was like going 3.5 years ago. I mean, there's so many different things happening. You have the office staff, you have the patients coming in, you have appointments being made. There's clinical diagnoses occurring. There's actual work being performed in the back, follow-up. And what we saw when I started kind of going around these offices is like everything was paper.
Mm-hmm.
And I just didn't understand it, because in most industries that I dealt with since like the mid 90s, everything is kind of being digitized. But I think obviously that's slowly changing, or maybe quickly changing. So that's, I think, probably the second takeaway. And the third one and biggest one, and kind of one of the reasons that's very interesting for Sunbit, is I walked into an office. This was probably like the third or fourth office I was in. I'll never forget. I went to, it was in Pico Rivera, which is kind of in South LA. And I went just to observe an office, and someone walked in, and they went to the back room to get a, full oral, comprehensive exam. And then like 5 minutes later, they came out, and just being curious, I asked the woman, I said, what happened there? Because I'm just trying to learn a little bit. She said, well, they told me that I needed 4 or 5 things. I said, okay. And I said, well, what happened? And she's like, well, it was too expensive.
Mm-hmm.
I'm like, okay, so what are you doing now? And she had like a broken retainer. It was kind of a bit of a sad case. And she said, well, I just can't afford it. And I'm like, I think we may have something here. And then I would go to office after office after office, and the doctor, the dentists, the office staff, the patient coordinators would tell me the same thing, that there's so many people that they would like to help that they simply, up till now, haven't been able to help. So I think those are kind of the 3 things that I think that it kind of the headline is like, there's a big affordability gap.
I think it's also a language gap too, in that when you go to the dentist, they tend to tell you maybe a 10-year plan in one lump sum. And when you go to buy a car, they give you a car that could be a 5 or 10-year car in a monthly payment. So the way we present our fees, you don't walk into, no one cares about what the actual car costs. They care that it's $285 a month or $350 a month. So, whereas like clear aligners could be $6,000, that's how it's presented. It should be presented, it's $250 a month. So everybody cares about their monthly payment. So I think it's a training on the dentist, not so much it's the industry, and we're trained to tell people the cost and not the monthly payment. So I think that's a big problem too.
I think that's a paradigm shift of, the treatment planning software, right? Our patient management software spits it out and it says, well, your treatment plan costs $6,000, and you slot, and the person in your team who doesn't have the right presentation training slides that over and looks at them. And to your point, Jay, the person gets up and says, well, all right, I gotta go. I can't.
There's no conversation. It's
right?
binary.
Yeah. And
here's
either you can
10,000 or nothing.
And so, and you've just embarrassed
is where I was
the
going.
Patient, and it's also not fun for the staff either.
Not fun for anybody. No one wants to
terrible.
know, right? And so reduce the friction of paying. And Craig, you've always said the analogy, right? Present in terms of the the monthly, because we live in a monthly economy. And if that is the blessing of you guys coming in an industry, which I think you've done a far better job than the predecessors, the Cares and the whatevers of the world. I think you guys have done a far better job of helping our teams break it down really quickly and help present in terms of digestible monthly payments. And I'm not using the word digestible is not the word I was looking for, but you get what I'm trying to say, right? Like something that works within their lifestyle, right? That it can be comprehensive treatment that actually works for their life.
Peter,
and that's, and that doing more dentistry is right. That's ultimately the goal, right? Fixing, serving people,
right? Well,
allowing the team to be busy and the practice to stay healthy and the patient gets healthy. Like that's the triple win.
Pete, if you think about the things that last, we treat dentistry as a consumable, like a night at a hotel or a dinner. Dentistry, even poor dentistry, is going to last you 7, 8, 9 years. Good dentistry, 10, 12, 15. I mean, how many times should you have to do orthodontics? It could be a lifetime result. So the fact is you're going to get a lifetime of straight teeth for $6,000. It should be broken down into a more, a payment plan that represents its length.
170.
You don't get a payment plan for dinner, but you get a payment plan for the house because you're going to live in it for 5 to 10, 15 years. You're going to get a payment plan for a car because it's meant to be depreciated over a long time. Dentistry has a long depreciation cycle. So as such, it's just the payment is not correlated to its depreciation, its useful life.
Jay, do you see more people, more DSOs integrating this quicker than private practices, or is it about the same acceleration? Is that the same?
It's quicker. It's quicker on the DSO side, I think, because.
Why do you think that is?
I've been asked this before, and I can only speculate, but I think it's because, like, if you have 3 or 4 locations, right? You've already had 1 location, and you've kind of graduated to 2. You've graduated to 3. The larger you get, I think, the more financial acumen you kind of need.
Got it.
And I think as you get to 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, you really understand that there's a ton of patients that would love to do the treatment that you're recommending, but just need a little bit of help. So I think when you're a single practice, although again, we have a lot of single practices that do a ton of financing, and great for them. But I would say on the whole, the uptake is much more on the DSO side. But I will say this, since I would say post-pandemic, since interest rates have been rising, we see significant usage increases across the board because obviously, I mean, people have, it's again, affordability gap. People have less discretionary income to spend, and they're looking for ways in which they can kind of, do bite-sized payments for not just dentistry, but for many things.
Our ethos at Bulletproof really is like, the whole term bulletproof is because Craig and I are passionate about the cottage industry, or helping the practitioner who wants to stay independent. In an age of consolidation, I always tell people, there's clues that some of the most savvy business people are doing, and they're not typically in the industry. They're not dentists anymore. They are now some of the DSOs. So do not bring a knife to a gunfight if that's something that, metaphorically speaking, if it's a battle, right? I always like to play. We just had a podcast on the Roman Empire. I dropped that in. So of course
it wasn't entirely on the Roman Empire.
Well, not right, but it had some fun outro of that. And so there was another group that we brought on called Patient Prism, which I was asking the founder, and I said, hey, he's like, well, mainly my clients are DSO people. And he's like, I just can't seem to get the private practitioner to do it. And I'm like, guys, so when I was introduced to it, I was like, God, this is such a no-brainer. I was like, we have to get this in front of more people who want to, individual entrepreneurs who want to grow their practice and stay their practice or keep bulletproof, right? And I think it's, that's kind of our battle cry, Jay. So I don't know where I'm going with that, other than I would love to see more awareness be brought, because it's such an easy adoption for Sunbit to be brought into the team. Right? Sure. You reward, what genius thing you guys did. Maybe you can talk about this real quick. You guys actually reward the team for their adoption of the technology. So it's not bestowed, that responsibility is not bestowed on the doctor. Like, don't you guys reward the team for like the individual team member?
Yeah, we have, correct. So we have what we call Sun Beast Rewards, which is basically a mechanism that is really an appreciation program for the office staff. And the idea is pretty simple. We are looking for a behavioral change with the office staff because either there's two options. Either they haven't used financing before, or they've used it in the past 25, 30 years and been heavily disappointed or bamboozled by whatever they've used. So it's very much a behavioral change that they have to make. So what we do is we provide really appreciation to the office staff, and they get points, and they can trade in those points for various rewards. So it's great for the office staff. It's great for the practice, clearly, and great for us. So it works real well. And we have an app on with it, and you can track your points, and the best person in the Atlanta area.
You gamify it, which is like, hello, yeah, right. And there's some, which is awesome. And I think it's cool you guys thought outside the box. Where I'm going is because usually the rewards are reliant on the dentist then bestowing them, right, based on something. Sure. You guys are saying like, hey, dentist, you're good. You're going to be good through more treatment. Let the team be rewarded through X, Y, and Z, and we'll take care of that. I just thought that was a cool cooperative.
And the dentists love it. And the dentists absolutely love it because they always love taking care of their staff, but they also love it when someone else is paying for that. So
that's my point.
Yeah,
that's my point. Craig, do you have anything on that?
No, I mean, I'm just happy that we have the immediacy, I think, is the most important thing. The friction of doing the third party financing is a major pain point. So the fact that there's less friction is obviously the thing that's most sticky to me. It's cool to know about that competitive and rewards gamified system. That's awesome.
Do you have recourse on your loans? And I'm maybe not using the right. You're shaking your head. No. This is why I went on a hunt for something, because I had a scenario, and I can just say the name because it's always factual. If it's factual, you can talk about the company. Care Credit. I had a patient who had applied for Care Credit. They ended up refuting the treatment without, and something happened. This is 10 years ago, right? They refuted the treatment, and Care Credit sided with, unbeknownst to me, the patient. And they went in and just extracted the money back out of my account, right? That was the recourse. And again, I'm not unpacking this very well, but, and Jay, maybe you can tell me the terminology of the thing they use. But I was like, this is complete bullshit, right? There shouldn't be, like, the judge and jury shouldn't just rest on some disgruntled patient. And it was really just a gut punch, right? It was almost to the point where I was like, fine, we are not doing in-house financing anymore if someone's going to abuse it like this, right? Because it's just not worth it. So can you give your intel on what I just said? Because I know I didn't use any of the right terminology or whatnot.
Sure. I can't speak to specifically what happened.
I know you can,
and all that kind of stuff. I don't like to get cease and desist letters, but in general, what you're
Pete
talking
seems
about,
to obviously like those.
Hey, a lawyer told me if it's true, you can't get sued if it's true.
Well, listen, the patient can always decide at any moment that there was there's laws that affect, contract law that within a certain amount of time, blah, blah, blah. And I've had inquiries to Care Credit, and they've defended me in the past. And, there's always
right, whatever. Jay, why don't you
go ahead?
I think what you're referring to is a chargeback, which is different than whether it's recourse or non-recourse. Recourse or non-recourse just refers to the fact that if we fund you and the patient doesn't pay, are you on the hook as the dentist? So if it's recourse, you are. If it's non-recourse, you aren't. We don't do any kind of non-recourse, and most of the other providers don't do that either. But what you're talking about is chargebacks, where they can come after you and say this form wasn't filled out right, this wasn't done correctly, and basically unilaterally make a determination and just jack the funds from your account. That's not something that we do. And again, irrespective of what happened or didn't happen.
I just want to say thank you for not doing that to us dentists, because that is, you talk about a kick in the belly. Teeth.
Yeah. At the core, you have to be fair, right? You have to be fair. And that's what we try to do.
And so that one event was enough to make me get off my, that was it. That was it for me, right? And so it was on the hunt for something new, and you guys just happened to kind of pop on the scene. So anyway, Jay, anything in closing that you feel like dentists need to know? Maybe not related to the product, but like something that you're just like, you know what, when I get on this Bulletproof pod, This is where I'm saying.
Here, I'll say a couple of things. One is a lot of people associate patient financing with helping subprime patients. And in part, that's true, but it's not the whole truth. So when we look at our portfolio, a huge chunk of it is prime patients. And you say, well, Jay, how does that make sense? Prime patients have great credit scores.
Prime, unpack that for us. Meaning
So
above a certain credit score?
Sure, above a certain credit score. Let's say above 680 FICO. Okay. So typically, you'd say, well, if someone has a very good FICO, why would they need financing? But I can tell you the data tells us otherwise. So let's say you go into your practice, you have a treatment plan of $5,000. Well, I don't care how much money that person makes or what they have or don't have in their bank account. If they have, let's say, a 700 FICO, they still may need help or want the flexibility. Right?
Yep.
So it's not just something where, patient financing is for, a lower demographic. People are, as a dentist, I don't have those type of patients. We hear that a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And my response is always, do you have your list of unscheduled treatment for the last 90 days? You probably have in your PMS system. I would like to take a look at that because there's probably tens of thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of dollars on that report. And to me, that report is the truth. That tells you the amount of people that walked out the door not taking full advantage of what you prescribed. So that's the key.
I just want to comment on this because I love this topic. And we all have those friends who make a tremendous amount of money, who could afford it and plop down their credit card, but you'll find it. Sure. If the terms are favorable, right? Like you'll do it. And so sometimes people don't present because you're like, well, I didn't want to offend them. And I love this comment. Like we don't do that in our practice because that's not what the kind of people we have. The people who aren't going to finance it, trust me, they will tell you as a badge of honor, meaning I don't need your financing. I'm paying in full. Okay. Right. But the people who may be amenable to it, like, well, cool. What are the terms? And we'll make it easy. Right. And everybody's doing it kind of thing. Like that is such a great, so just don't judge people thinking that like, well, this person needs financing, this, not just present everybody with it, because the people who don't need it or don't want it, they will tell you and they will be super proud. Did you see the Ferrari I came in one? Right. I don't need financing. They say a black Amex. I don't need that. Okay. Pay in full. Awesome.
Yeah. So a nice way to say that in tactical language is like, hey, and Mr. Jones, we have great flexible payment options to help you get the treatment you need to fit into your budget or something along that line, to which the rich guy will flex and say, I don't need a payment plan. Here's my credit. They'll slap the credit card down.
Yeah. That's so almost really credit card. Here, just take my credit card. Okay.
But think about this. Think about like when you go to Target. What's the first question they ask you when you're in the checkout line?
Do you want a Target card?
Would you like? Exactly. Right. Yeah. Now, do 100 out of 100 people say yes? No. But maybe 10 out of 100 do. And it's an extremely successful credit program, but it gives you, the consumer, the option. Even if you say no, you're happy they gave you the option.
Totally. Well, I'm about happy. Yeah. But yeah, I hear you. Totally. Sometimes you're like, no, I don't want any more credit cards, Like,
that's right.
But I hear you. Jay, awesome. I loved having you. Actually, I think I got some good pearls, even personally about this. So it's good to have you. I appreciate you guys respecting our industry, supporting our industry. I appreciate you guys supporting Bulletproof because, we're doing we're supporting good people and good dentists. So I appreciate that. Greg, anything?
No, I appreciate your help with the Bulletproof Summit and the fact that we had people like you put us at the Wynn Hotel versus the Golden Nugget down the street. I know that the $4 prime rib dinner, not to knock them, is probably pretty good. I'm happy that we're able to be at the Wynn.
No, inflation has made that dinner now, Craig, $19.99. So you keep saying $4, and it's like you haven't kept up with your inflationary joke.
Yes, exactly. Thanks for making my jokes more relevant. But anyway, we do appreciate it, and I'm happy to be doing business and having supportive sponsors that we actually use in our own practices.
100%.
Great. Well, super. Thank you guys for having me. Really appreciate it and love all what you guys do.
Thank you. All right. Great. Take care, Jay.
Great. Take care now.